Introduction. In a world of emails, social media, video conferencing, and remote teams, the way we communicate is rapidly changing. We have access to more methods of communication than we ever had before, yet something seems to be missing: the connection we can only get in person. Recent studies show we are lonelier than we have ever been. In fact, 40% of adults are so lonely they don't know who to turn to. Loneliness has been linked to poor health, substance abuse, and suicide, and it has the same effect on mortality as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Through the Connect and Thrive workshop, we take a practical approach to communication, building on solid evidence-based foundations in both areas, technology and neuroscience. Starting by mastering effective, in-person communication with tools that drive the brain to connect, the participants learn to project these skills into the technological world, gaining insights on the most effective ways to communicate without the benefits present in face-to-face interactions. Facilitated by an engaging professor and expert in leadership communication, this workshop does not rely on traditional content delivery methods, but engages participants in masterfully designed, state-of-the-art exercises that fully immerse them in the techniques and practices exposed during the event. Focused on the relational aspect of communication, this workshop addresses principles that, aside from facilitating business networking, can enhance any human relationship in our everyday environments. The answer is a resounding yes, as several management disciplines advocate such objectives. Interestingly, findings by found that 30 minutes of networking during dinner is significant in the sense of enhancing information access even when there is no follow-up communication thereafter. Networking behavior can therefore be behavioral, which could be executed without pre-sculpted intentions, thus adding to the spontaneous nature of individuals in search of a pleasant environment to reinvest time and participation. Have shown that food is an important factor in reducing barriers among strangers and increasing conversation rates. Also note that certain dishes spark guest curiosity and cause them to try the dishes served. Optimizing networking by conference organizers may therefore require some understanding and catering towards the food culture of the attendees. Effective interpersonal communication is fundamental in business, particularly in the context of management and leadership. Connectivity among the attendees of a MIC is an integral part of management experiences, as such interactions impact significantly on the outcome. It could lead to a strong, loyal network of friends or a business network, success in resolving work issues, growth in career chances, and even have an accumulative impact on strategic thinking and empathy. A recent study in Singapore mentions that individuals with a high level of social connectivity are likely to perform better, experiencing increased productivity and creativity. As the ability to network is critical to green skills, the immediate question is whether there are any techniques that can be trained to nurture leadership or managers to harness these desirable outcomes. In the world of business, for example, a worker with numerous connections that are not very deep does relatively well in the company. But it is he or she who actually manages to go a bit further, establishing deeper and rewarding relationships, who is offered promotions, is elected for Congress, and is even capable of starting their own successful venture. When you work collaboratively, everyone involved benefits from the relationship. When everyone does what is best for the other, the whole partnership flourishes. I built my first company based on partnerships, establishing win-win collaborations with chains of department stores. The growth of which we achieved in just 2 years was largely fueled by our connection in this partnership style. Now things are about to take a positive turn for you. Not only will this book teach you how to expand the number of people with whom you connect, but you'll also learn strategies to deepen your connections. Whether it is with people in your personal or professional life, you will have tools that help you build profound, rewarding relationships. Those who use the techniques I highlight in every chapter grow in confidence and create connections like never before. They are able to collaborate with family members and friends to resolve contentious issues, differences in opinion, philosophies of life, and the best way to tackle the serious challenges and adversities that compromise our lives. In essence, they are able to thrive in all their relationships. Chapter 1: Understanding Communication. Creating an unfortunate environment. The speech environment must be ideal for effective communication. The individual's comfort with their geographical and spatial environment, a suitable physical business, and suitable atmospheres is quite important in the occurrence of communication. Moreover, this comfort is growing, despite the fact that a few places are especially selected for a person to communicate in certain cases. For example, a lunch, an engagement meeting, a chalet, a resort, a summer house, and a refectory belong to these places. Another aspect that adds to the environment's effect on communication is the amount of light. Natural light in the environment should be used as much as possible, as it is familiar and restful. Intercommunication is the only way other than in person to communicate and respond to someone else's message. This communication occurs in a regular way. During the interaction that occurs, one person can start to communicate with the other person they are talking to. This way, the other person, besides talking, can take the initiative and start communicating. Communication is performed in 4 ways, which should be explored in detail. 1. Personification, i.e. relationship. This is an individualized and targeted way to transfer a message to a hearer or more than one hearer. This way of communication takes place face-to-face with eye contact. For example, a manager addresses his staff in a meeting about the budget and target of the company. At the same time, a husband, a mother, or a political leader conveys messages to family members, the audience, or the public to listen during a general meeting. In doing this, an effective way of communication, eye contact, is used. 2. Stygian, eye relationship. It can be defined as speech expressing statements, descriptions, and definitions rather than an expression of feelings and emotions. An answer generating a question, stating, explaining, the sermon of a history course, a tale, a report, an expression between the teacher and the student may be examples of this. 3. Public relations. By means of this way, the speaker gives information without expecting a response from the listener, and or the listener may transfer a message by speaking into the air. An advertisement, an announcement, a lecture, a radio broadcast, and the news in a newspaper are examples of this way of communication. 4. Cycloxenia, a dialogue. This is a way where 2 or more people exchange ideas and information by speaking simultaneously through dialogue. What is communication? The most general definition of it, perhaps, is that communication is an activity that transfers information from one person to another. In reality, communication is a process of understanding ourselves and understanding others, as well as the mindful use of this process to enable effective reciprocation. Communication becomes effective if the message originator and the message receiver see the message in the same way. Nonverbal communication comes in different forms such as body language, facial expressions, gestures, and their use, the use of colors, electronics, etc. With this much support, it is hard for someone to misunderstand you when communicating using nonverbal means of communication. One would definitely thrive in their communication and relationships. While verbal and nonverbal communication both work effectively when used individually, the 3 V's concept comes to assist in filling the empty spaces where each of the first 2 may have challenges. The vocal element in communication has to do with sound and its implications. Most of the understanding in communication comes from the nonverbal and vocal forms of communication. 2 of the best forms of communication are verbal and nonverbal communication. However, sometimes these 2 forms of communication are not all that is needed for effective communication. For one to be effective in communication, there are the 3 V's required. These are verbal, vocal, and visual communication. Verbal communication is all about using sound or articulation. This is because most communication today is done by phone, radio, television, or online. These kinds of communications require sound and talking, Hence, anything through these means is considered to be verbal communication. Nonverbal communication comes to fill out the few shortcomings that verbal communication has. Such shortcomings may sometimes make the communication even more effective and successful. To actively listen, which is a skill that depends on both a capacity for understanding others' perspective that comes from our innate empathy and a conscious decision on our part without any other goal than to be present with the speaker, is simple, but it may not be easy. When we actively listen to someone, we are empathetic, recognizing the unique perspective of others. We give our undivided attention to the person who is speaking. We maintain an open posture. We provide both verbal and nonverbal cues that show interest, and we give them the time and space they require to communicate their message. We also assess those around us with our eyes, often keeping our mobile phones away and avoiding letting any other possible distractions steal our attention. With active listening, we are capable of empathizing with another person's feelings without being taken over by their emotional state. In other words, we listen as observers, trying to recognize not only the cognitive information that the person is conveying, but also the emotional motivation behind it. Actively listening is a powerful skill with wide applications. Everyone, regardless of our communication style, can greatly benefit from the willingness to truly listen to others for just a few minutes. Active listening is also relevant due to the emphasis that is given when it comes to leadership. They attest to the evidence of the relationship between active listening and perceived charismatic leadership. They go as far as to say that due to the way in which it differentiates effective and admired leaders from less efficient and less admired ones, active listening is unique and fundamental among the broad set of communication skills that leadership demands. By actively listening to the person we are interacting with, we are in essence recognizing their presence and their dignity as human beings. We create connection and make them feel that their opinions and perspectives have importance. Furthermore, by conveying to the world our genuine interest in the other person, it is very likely that they will express their own thoughts, thus lending their respect and attention to us. Active listening is then a skill that helps us create a virtuous circle, one that generates more trust and connection. The term body language has become popular and widely used because of its accuracy and insight on the subject. Among the many disciplines that emphasize those aspects of gesture, facial expression, etc. are kinesics, the study of communication through body movements, proxemics, the study of communication in various settings, and paralanguage, the study of communication through vocal and visual stimuli that are not verbal, among others. Body language is a very broad construct, studying the interpretation of body movement, posture, facial expression, and gaze, both direct and overt. It is a very important area because the body is not an extension of language, but a key part of what we communicate to each other when we communicate. Our bodies reveal much more than the words we use to convey ideas, thoughts, attitudes, and feelings. This assertion is equally true for the speech and thoughts of the person who sends the message and for the person who interprets its meaning. It turns out that verbal communication is only a small fraction of what contributes to communication in the interactions we have with others. A large part of what we say is actually done using our bodies, without us being aware of it. Our bodies or nonverbal communication can greatly enhance or deter our intentions to effectively communicate with the other person. Additionally, our body can also give us clues as to the emotional and mental states of other people. There is a large body of research we should all consider if we are to personalize the services we offer to the vulnerable members of society, for whom we do things with the best of intentions, always while trying to improve their quality of life. Taking this into account, it is necessary for us to have detailed knowledge in this sense. It is time to take the bull by the horns and get to work on the new concept named CAPPS in a project for the participation and social inclusion of students with special educational support requirements. Chapter 2. Building Strong Connections. Connect frequently and with genuine concern. We are the average of the 5 people we surround ourselves with, and we become the brand we are affiliated with. It is healthy to be in like-minded communities where we share similar values and aspirations. These communities breed a healthy atmosphere of collaboration and support where it's the norm to help one another and create meaningful connections. It is essential we strive toward reaching our full potential. Then, with steel clarity, we need to then try and support ourselves with people who really believe in us, hold high regard for us, and challenge us to be the best version of ourselves. They inspire us to do more, to be more, and live a fulfilling life. When we are in such a support system, our individual glow increases, which eventually has a high regard for who we are and the value we bring into the lives of those who depend on us. Effective communication means being tactful, careful with our words, showing respect, and understanding how to best resonate with our audience. One of the most powerful phrases when it comes to relationships is "I understand." When people feel understood and listened to, it opens the doors for transparency and vulnerability. This is the seed of a deep and meaningful relationship. If there is something a person entrusts us with, and we wish to simply hold space for them to emote without any response, phrases such as "I'm so sorry" or "I don't know what to say, but I care for you" can make another person feel like they are being understood. What's more, empathy is actually hardwired into our brains. This makes it easier and more natural for you to empathize with someone screaming in terror, for example, because in under 0.2 of a second, your own brain involuntarily registers the distress and starts preparing your body for a sympathetic fight or flight response. Though this is widely accepted around the world, current research now suggests that you may actually have to be more deliberate about empathizing with another's sense of joy, awe, or gentle soothing, regardless of who you are. This may be more culturally based if it hasn't been a focus of your continued growth and self-regulation. Empathy really drives you to cross familiar boundaries. It allows you to connect on a deeper level with someone and see the world through their eyes, fostering compassion and understanding. In order to really connect with another person, it's important to build trust. Trust allows for open and honest communication without the fear of retaliation. Building trust does take time and patience. However, through genuine and authentic support and validation, trust can be strengthened. There are several strategies that can help to engage the feelings that foster trust. Empathy is such a key way to deepen connections. Empathy is the ability to identify and understand others' emotions and be more attuned to their needs and feelings. Empathy can also bridge the gap when someone's entire perspective is different from your own. It allows you to step outside of your own frame of reference and truly connect with another person's experience. Most of the course teaches students to drive their own car, Dr. Goldman explains. Ultimately, the goal is to drive on the road, the highway, that connects east and west with their foot on the pedal. Because driving on the road connects the individual to other drivers and to passengers, it becomes critically important, while also potentially enriching, to communicate effectively with others. Emotional intelligence, then, is about engaging in emotional transactions. Bidirectional interactions in which individuals engage in the attempted management of their own and potentially other people's emotions. The capacity to manage oneself, understand and appropriately respond to the emotions of others, as well as the complex interplay between the connected self and other, is a critical prerequisite for success and effectiveness in organizational life. Emotional Intelligence, a course taught by Dr. Mark Goldman, assistant professor in the Department of Management, Wolf Semester in Israel, summer 2005, helps students touch on all the skills they have learned in the Wolf School of Business. Students gain the ability to manage their thoughts, communicate, work in a group, and act and react ethically and more sensitively. In a 10-week course divided into 4 parts: understanding our own emotions, managing our own emotions, understanding others' emotions, and managing others' emotions. Students get hands-on experience through assessment, surveys, and evaluations. Each person submitted notes about their career's norming, revealing details about the organization's strengths and weaknesses, personal opportunities for leadership, and areas for growth, and suggestions for the future of the organization and members, says Dr. Goldman. The opportunity to share their personal experiences for the collective benefit of the entire class allowed students, for example, to offer feedback that was substantive and constructive, as well as generalized, rather than subjective and potentially superficial. Identifying similar elements across different organizations also facilitated the development of a more comprehensive understanding of critical success factors deemed necessary to create effective teams and organizations. Admiring things in common can make the other person understand that they are not alone in their point of view and can help connect to you on shared views on topics. Typically, people are more comfortable communicating with people whom they agree with. Be sure to mention something with sincerity when appropriate, using a slight tap. While it is best to discuss these chats to create a sense of connection between people when the other person is near you, these shared values should be genuine. Find common ground and discuss it to create a sense of connection. As you listen, watch the other person's nonverbal communication and mirror their body language slightly. For example, you might slightly raise your hand to mirror the other person while they are speaking, or raise your hand only when they do, while emulating the other person's speech pattern. By mirroring their behavior, you show that you are engaged and interested in what they are saying, fostering a deeper connection and understanding. Communicate that you respect the other person by listening to them while reflecting what they have said, rather than trying to persuade them with your own point of view. Active and empathic listening can help create a deeper connection with others. According to the U.S. National Training Laboratories, on average, people only retain approximately 25% of what is said in conversation. How can you use active listening to help the other person more deeply understand themselves while simultaneously increasing your own understanding? By truly listening and reflecting back their thoughts and feelings, you validate their experience and create a safe space for open and honest communication. Building rapport means that people are at ease with each other and are connected to each other. The stronger the rapport that exists between people, the more effectively they are likely to communicate with each other. Rapport often arises through a gradual process wherein each person connects to each other emotionally and begins to understand each other more deeply. Here are a few tips on how to build rapport. 1. Find common ground. Look for shared interests, experiences, or values that you can connect on. This helps create a sense of familiarity and understanding between you and the other person. 2. Use mirroring and matching. Pay attention to the other person's body language, tone of voice, and pace of speech. Try to subtly mirror their behavior to create a sense of rapport and connection. 3. Show genuine interest. Ask open-ended questions and actively listen to the other person's responses. Show that you care about what they have to say and are interested in getting to know them better. 4. Be authentic. Be yourself and let your true personality shine through. People are more likely to trust and connect with someone who is genuine and authentic. 5. Practice active listening. Give the other person your full attention and avoid distractions. Reflect back what they have said to show that you are actively engaged and understanding their perspective. By following these tips, you can build rapport with others and establish a foundation for effective communication and meaningful connections. Chapter 3. Effective Communication Techniques. Thoughtful recognition and influence of nonverbal signals. Research shows that nonverbal communication accounts for anywhere from 50 to 90% of the total meaning of any interaction. Nonverbal communication may be intentional or unintentional. Nonverbal signals can communicate a wide variety of subtle messages, for example, respect, importance, warmth, and professionalism. Nonverbal cues may be as subtle as changing or dropping tonal pitch of voice, or as dynamic and involved, like facial expression or bodily motions. Recognize what the other person is emotionally feeling and adapt your reply to the emotions of the other individual. Not only with nonverbal communication, but also with the words used during the act of speaking. Use neutral words that can't be misinterpreted and follow up with pleasant phrases and statements in order to smoothen over any misinterpretation. Be aware of the power of nonverbal communication and how it can profoundly impact your interactions. Pay attention to the microexpressions, body language, and overall demeanor of the person you are communicating with. By mastering the ability to read and interpret nonverbal signals, you can gain valuable insights into their thoughts, feelings, and intentions. This will allow you to respond appropriately and effectively, fostering deeper connections and understanding. Be a good listener. When you're talking to someone, be a listener instead of a talker. Make sure they are comfortable and put aside your inhibitions. Use body language and verbal utterances to communicate to the person that you are not only listening, but that you want to listen and that you're interested in what the person has to say. A good listener makes eye contact, shows interest in what the other person is saying, makes verbal utterances at appropriate times, and provides an empathetic and compassionate touch to ease any stress and complications the other person is going through. Prove to the other person that you're truly interested in what they have to say. Practice active listening by fully focusing on the speaker, maintaining eye contact, and refraining from interrupting or formulating your response while they are still speaking. Show empathy and understanding through your body language and facial expressions, nodding and smiling to indicate your engagement. Additionally, ask clarifying questions and provide supportive comments to encourage the speaker to open up and share more. By being a good listener, you create an atmosphere of trust and mutual respect that enhances effective communication and strengthens relationships. Effective communication involves various processes such as attentive listening, nonverbal communication, and the ability to read emotions. Below are 4 effective communication techniques that can help you connect with those you care about more deeply and help you thrive as a result. Practice them diligently, and you will begin to develop better relationships with everyone you care about, including others and your own self. Develop self-awareness and emotional intelligence to better understand your own feelings and reactions, allowing you to communicate more effectively with others. Pay attention to your own nonverbal signals and make conscious efforts to align them with your verbal messages. This consistency will enhance your credibility and trustworthiness, making it easier for others to connect with you on a deeper level. Practice active listening and empathetic responding to demonstrate genuine interest and concern for others. Validate their experiences and emotions, showing them that you value their perspectives. Finally, be open to constructive feedback and engage in open and honest dialogue. By being receptive to input and willing to grow, you foster an environment of continuous learning and improvement in your relationships. Your thoughts and ideas should have continuity. One idea should move freely to another one, generating flow and logical sequence to the discussion. This logical sequence is not easy to suggest. It primarily emerges from sensible reading, writing, receptive ability, and then a lot of thinking. With attempts to create clarity through logic, a lot of practice follows, and with a dedicated effort, you can master this important art. Clarity also requires you to have command over the subject. You have to know your content very well so that you can select the most appropriate content for a given topic. You have to have a fair amount of knowledge about the likely area of interest of your co-communicator, and you must be able to address their queries inside the core domain as and when they seek. As far as the subject of the discussion is concerned, spill all yourself, but beware of going too deep. A practical, decent amount of information is good enough. However, it is better if one can trickle the most important information. All of this can be summed up by the name of the great Indian mathematician, Ramanujan, who used to suggest a problem and give the answer itself, where the difficult algorithm between the problem and its solution lies in the journey of the one who is reading. At the same time, it is also important to respect the intelligence of your co-communicator. Being clear and concise is one of the most important factors in your communication, as it gives your co-communicator a strong idea of what you are talking about. The distance between two people in a conversation is not only physical, but mainly a result of unclarity of ideas and thoughts. Similarly, People feel close to others not only when the distance between them is small, but more importantly when there are no communication barriers present between them. Thus, making your speech clear and concise becomes an important tool in approaching others. It also conveys in a stylish way the message that you have command over the subject, and you know exactly what the subject is talking about. Clarity and conciseness in communication comes from many factors. While open questions are usually more powerful than their closed-ended cousins, on occasion, you may wish to use closed-ended questions. Specifically, closed-ended questions are usually quicker, but only usually so, to answer. When an answer isn't needed, questions can be asked for eliciting thought from the other person. Of course, no answer at all is required with such an amusing question. Another question with a specific correct answer is, can you tell me what happens to crude oil before it turns into gasoline? A third type of question interested in the structure of the other person's concepts is the foolish question. Let's see a few specimens. Is the universe very shy? Do you say God is very clingy? Is the universe a very shy little boy? Open-ended questions prompt another person to give a more detailed and helpful answer than you can get from a closed question. Asking open-ended questions is important to hear what the other person thinks, feels, and wants. Open questions are powerful exactly because of their ambiguity. The ambiguity allows for the opportunity to hear the most interesting special experiences, most heartfelt wants, and most insightful calls for help. On the other hand, because open questions are powerful, they also require more resources to answer effectively. The answer must be created from scratch without the comfort of a list of previously realized and vetted possible answers. Consequently, asking open-ended questions requires being open to hearing whatever the other person truly thinks, wants, and so on. In high-risk situations, reflect concern as well as the facts. Sympathy can create a positive response that helps reduce the trauma of a crisis. You surpass your limits and unleash your potential when others believe in you. Reflective listening makes sense of the emotions as well as the speaker's labeled feelings. This makes the listening experience about the speaker's present attitude. It keeps the needs, desires, dreams, and aspirations of the people involved distinct. For planners, reflective listening enhances the data for decision-making. There is a lot to learn about each other, society, and connections when we test our viewpoint with others. To reflect perspective, you must be careful not to invoke unnecessary variables that are associated with those whom you model or observe. The change in perspective that occurs when you reflect on another person's expressions increases your humility, better setting the stage for success. When reflecting back a person's words, you act as a mirror. This gives a person the chance to review their assessments and emotions. By understanding someone on their own terms, a person can feel secure that you accept them as they are, protecting their dignity. Reflective listening is a deep communication experience. The listener merges into the speaker's meanings and emotions. This builds maximum trust and understanding. By putting yourself in the speaker's shoes, you can figure out how the speaker interprets their world. When you touch base with them in their world, they feel value and respect. A speaker will reveal more information when the listener is non-judgmental. Reflective listening requires you to pay attention to a person's body language and express thoughts. If you start forming solutions or preconception, listen again to the speaker. It is often difficult to be assertive because we were not taught how. As children, we may have been taught that the assertive behavior we exhibited was rude and inconsiderate of others, forcing us to suppress our voice. You may have been taught not to put yourself above others. This is to be understood as the intent of aggressive statements. You may have been taught to treat others as you want to be treated, honoring their wishes and feelings above your own. This is the intent of non-assertive behavior. We lose touch with what we actually need to be productive and happy in the workplace. When we behave in a way that goes against our personal values, we tend to become resentful and unhappy, irritable, or uncooperative. There is sometimes a fine line between being assertive and being aggressive, but the difference is important. People need to hear from. Chapter 4. Overcoming Communication Barriers. As a foundation, capitalize on your experience and knowledge that certain barriers in communication are unavoidable due to the variability of individual communication processes. However, within your control is how effectively you develop and deliver a message using a five-step approach, Figure 6. If your intent is to convey an effective message that minimally impacts your relationships, consistently adapt and modify your communication strategies to overcome these five dynamic barriers in your communications. To harness the potency of the communication cycle and levels of communication, align these barriers to your aims and refine your deliveries to include these barriers in your training or communication situations. Incorporating these five barriers into your comfort and extemporaneous communications will maximize effective communication and enhance your relationships. At this point, you should be aware of the communication cycle and have a clearer understanding of the various levels of communication. While these can serve as useful tools, their effectiveness is often hindered by several communication barriers that can erode the cognitive, emotional, relational, linguistic, and sensory channels of communication and negatively impact your relationships. Although these encumbrances are often beyond your control, strengthening your ability to communicate will help prevent, mitigate, and adapt to their effects. In particular, these tips and strategies have been designed for collaborative and cooperative communication efforts. Based on mutual respect and cooperation, they empower both individuals to recognize and jointly address communication barriers that are likely to occur. Hence, although it is difficult to avoid all cultural differences and linguistic disparities as a quick and simple overall rule, it involves your turning towards the other person. Anybody who takes this simple, single step is giving the right advice to someone because the decision to see the world from the viewpoint of the addressee is the essential element of the so-called conversation sensitive. Turn-taking is not a matter of conversation organization, but a reflection of the conversationalist's decision to address the addressee rather than ignore him in his communication. Here, the essential idea is that we attune ourselves to the other person, even in random utterances. The first and most difficult point in handling relationships is understanding cultural differences and disparities in language use. To ensure that you communicate sensitively, coherently, and effectively, two basic steps are as follows. Understanding cultural attitudes to areas like time, honor, emotion, and religion, and understanding disparities in language use such as idiomatic phraseology and knowledge of levels of style. Many people do, often unknowingly, carry out acts that are culturally inappropriate or linguistic blunders. An enlightening book is Richard D. Lewis' When Cultures Collide. However, as the world is growing with social media, we have no time to verify and sometimes ask for clarity beyond it. It is important to consider the message and the circumstances in which that message is delivered, according to psychologist Kevin R. Hill. Hill has communicated to students and clients for over 25 years. It is particularly simple for telephone conversations and text messages to be turned off. Depending on cultural differences between two people, speaking can also have layers of meaning. Some people, for example, are very literal in their language, while others have nuance connected with what makes things complicated. Social media platforms serve to disseminate both people's views and general conversations. Good communication is key to every successful relationship, so why is it often misunderstood? Everything can be lost in translation if the recipient misinterprets it, and this is particularly common when the message is presented on social media. You say, "I'm good after lunch." Post a picture of yourself in bed thereafter, or post a picture of your food. These are common examples. Your intention is probably just to share with your friends what's happening in your day, but in doing so, they may not understand you're still cool. They may think, "Oh, she's free right now, we should go hang out," which changes your arrangements and nothing is fun. We can read too deeply into the context of people's social media posts, just as they can when we do so. The aforementioned examples are, in fact, symptoms. They are symptoms of accumulated problems that are very difficult to cover. Below are the hiccups chained to emotional barriers. Lack of emotional expression. Emotional barriers are not being able to understand your own feelings. This could lead to impacted thoughts where people are not able to think of positive ways to handle certain situations, or even intense situations where they are spat out towards others, increasing pressure surrounding impacted thoughts. Over time, people who have emotional barriers will fail to understand themselves. What goes inside of them? What could have improved it? At that point, they began losing jobs, chances, and opportunities. In addition to that, emotional barriers prohibit individuals from understanding others. They are so fixated on their errors, others seem distant to them. They no longer feel empathy, and they perceive close relations as malicious entities wanting to bring harm to their personalities. This hurts social connections. In my previous article, I discussed the resistors or things that can prevent a good connection to different individuals. One of the 9 resistors is not taking risks to show your deepest, truest self. I was wondering why it is so hard for people to show who they really are. Perhaps thinking of it, emotional barriers would most likely drastically impose an impact on an individual's social life. What are emotional barriers anyway? In a nutshell, it is the inability of a person to view their emotional expressions. There are a lot of implications when someone is unable to express their feelings. Individuals who struggle a lot in engaging conversations are most likely to have problems with the following examples: making friends, approaching social groups, and confidence. Expanding upon these examples, making friends becomes difficult for individuals with emotional barriers because they struggle to establish genuine connections. Without the ability to express their emotions, they may come across as detached or uninterested, making it challenging to form meaningful bonds. Additionally, approaching social groups can be daunting for those with emotional barriers as they may fear judgment or rejection. Their lack of emotional expression may make them appear aloof or unapproachable, hindering their ability to join in and engage with others. Moreover, confidence can suffer greatly when emotional barriers are present. The inability to understand and express one's feelings can lead to self-doubt and insecurity, making social interactions anxiety-inducing. Overcoming emotional barriers is crucial in order to lead a fulfilling social life. By recognizing and addressing these barriers, individuals can begin to develop a greater understanding of their emotions and how to express them effectively. This process may involve seeking therapy or counseling, engaging in self-reflection and introspection, and practicing open and honest communication with others. With time and effort, emotional barriers can be broken down, allowing for deeper connections, increased self-confidence, and overall improved social well-being. It is important to prioritize emotional health and work towards creating a more authentic and fulfilling social life. Depending on cultural differences between two people, speaking can also have layers of meaning. Some people, for example, are very literal in their language, while others have nuance connected with what makes things complicated. Social media platforms serve to disseminate both people's views and general conversations. Good communication is key to every successful relationship, so why is it often misunderstood? Everything can be lost in translation if the recipient misinterprets it, and this is particularly common when the message is presented on social media. You say, "I'm good after lunch," post a picture of yourself in bed thereafter, or post a picture of your food. These are common examples. Your intention is probably just to share with your friends what's happening in your day, but in doing so, they may not understand you're still cool. They may think, "Oh, she's free right now. We should go hang out," which changes your arrangements, and nothing is fun. We can read too deeply into the context of people's social media posts, just as they can when we do so. The aforementioned examples are, in fact, symptoms. They are symptoms of accumulated problems that are very difficult to cover. Below are the hiccups chained to emotional barriers. Lack of emotional expression. Emotional barriers are not being able to understand your own feelings. This could lead to impacted thoughts where people are not able to think of positive ways to handle certain situations, or even intense situations where they are spat out towards others, increasing pressure surrounding impacted thoughts. Over time, people who have emotional barriers will fail to understand themselves. What goes inside of them? What could have improved it? At that point, they began losing jobs, chances, and opportunities. In addition to that, emotional barriers prohibit individuals from understanding others. They are so fixated on their errors, others seem distant to them. They no longer feel empathy, and they perceive close relations as malicious entities wanting to bring harm to their personalities. This hurts social connections. In my previous article, I discussed the resistors or things that can prevent a good connection to different individuals. One of the 9 resistors is not taking risks to show your deepest, truest self. I was wondering why it is so hard for people to show who they really are. Perhaps thinking of it, emotional barriers would most likely drastically impose an impact on an individual's social life. What are emotional barriers anyway? In a nutshell, it is the inability of a person to view their emotional expressions. There are a lot of implications when someone is unable to express their feelings. Individuals who struggle a lot in engaging conversations are most likely to have problems with the following examples: making friends, approaching social groups, and confidence. Expanding upon these examples, making friends becomes difficult for individuals with emotional barriers because they struggle to establish genuine connections. Without the ability to express their emotions, they may come across as detached or uninterested, making it challenging to form meaningful bonds. Additionally, approaching social groups can be daunting for those with emotional barriers as they may fear judgment or rejection. Their lack of emotional expression may make them appear aloof or unapproachable, hindering their ability to join in and engage with others. Moreover, confidence can suffer greatly when emotional barriers are present. The inability to understand and express one's feelings can lead to self-doubt and insecurity, making social interactions anxiety-inducing. Overcoming emotional barriers is crucial in order to lead a fulfilling social life. By recognizing and addressing these barriers, individuals can begin to develop a greater understanding of their emotions and how to express them effectively. This process may involve seeking therapy or counseling, engaging in self-reflection and introspection, and practicing open and honest communication with others. With time and effort, emotional barriers can be broken down, allowing for deeper connections, increased self-confidence, and overall improved social well-being. It is important to prioritize emotional health and work towards creating a more authentic and fulfilling social life. Chapter 5: Conflict Resolution. For all too many questions, there is hope. If not at the moment, there will always be time. If anyone's afraid of they won't be sure, keep reading. When discussing the difference, there are important questions to ponder. Do I feel contemptuous towards my partner? Can we see a compromise? You can listen and respond to your partner. Do we understand each other's goals or any real differences in value? Can we tease out any misunderstanding, confusion, or hidden interests? If we look at our future or relationships, what is their relative significance? While no one likes conflict, it should be communicated clearly without derogatory remarks. Ignoring or underestimating a smaller disagreement can grow into larger ones. Conversely, disagreements can also dissipate, along with the strength and frequency of escalating emotion or continued discussions. Part of the challenge in managing conflict is containment. This may mean restricting the impact of conflict on self-identity, controlling the escalation of conflict and potential emotional escalation, or preventing negative interaction patterns. Conflict is a part of every interaction, and the strategies discussed in this module can help individuals manage and resolve those conflicts. These strategies are not one-size-fits-all, but with practice, they can allow couples to dig deeper to address their needs in mutual respect and understanding. I am an avid avoider, which suggests that I am provisional, considerate, and not very opposing in any way. Knowing that one of my friends may have a minimum of 2 other opposite results creates additional fascination, insight, frankness, and empathy for the other person. This new awareness can help in a way to mend or solidify the foundation of that friendship. Everyone has multiple styles, some more than others, and some people have equidistant styles, such as the negotiator or compromiser. Ultimately, a person's mode of conflict resolution will help us recognize that person better and improve our connection with him or her. If we know that one of our friends is completely tolerant, considerate, stands up for themselves, is logical, and is inclined to embrace freedom of speech, we can better comprehend him or her and partake in private bonds. The avoider is someone who confronts a situation by simply avoiding the problem altogether. The collaborator is someone who only cares about their own feelings and is oppositional to all different opinions. The dominator disregards anyone else's input or feelings and only cares about what they want. The negotiator is someone who tries to reach a compromise, but only if the decision has an equal amount of reciprocity. The last style, the compromiser, is someone who tries to reach a conclusion by asking, "What can we do that gets everyone to be happy?" Almost everyone has a history of conflict, and the way people handle conflict strongly influences who they are as a person. In order to understand people and learn from them, we must understand their conflict style. In What's Your Conflict Resolution Style? By Robin Rees, author, psychologist, and creative art therapist, Robin Rees explains 5 different conflict resolution styles: avoider, collaborator, dominator, negotiator, and compromiser. You must take into account that certain problems require attention. There is a possibility of solving a concern that affects you in some way. At the same time, however, what might look like a problem for you must be an absolute concern for you. It must be solved in some sense. Problems in problem relationships can be solved in a few steps, slowly, or indeed, in a much faster manner. And again, you need to play a little bit between what people can address quickly and what they can afford. Thus, if a solution plan is readily accessible, be it a diet solution, how to deal with that term paper, although it's easier to communicate with another person/individual, you can share that solution. Prentice, Dunn, and Rogers, 1982, developed the active coaching model to aid intellectually disabled individuals in identifying and addressing concerns. Learning about active coaching may help develop communication skills in relationships. The model focuses on identifying and defining your concerns, thinking about potential solutions to those concerns, reflecting on your solutions, and implementing plans to improve your concerns. We can also focus on our communication through examining our communication problems, identifying what responses can be most effective, and ultimately implementing communication solutions. When actively solving a problem, however, there are other considerations that must be made about communication. We must think about whether our concerns are either absolute or more tolerant, and then how we can better express our concerns to different people according to those concerns. For an example, if the parents are in a financial bind and cannot afford to buy a house, they must sit down, communicate their concerns, and negotiate what will be the next plan for their family's dwelling. They may have to do things like design a plan to save money, find alternative ways to make extra money, or decrease the paid amount of their required bills by working with vendors. All of these discussions will require some give and take from both individuals, therefore being able to meet in the middle through negotiation and compromise. Always remember, negotiation involves compromise. It is important to remember that in order to be effective, everyone involved in the negotiation must be flexible and open-minded. Both parties must be willing to listen and consider new ideas. You do not have to give in, and you do not have to accept the first offer. Remember, you have things that are important to you as well as the other party. You also possess negotiating power through the ability at times to say no. Of course, this will not always work, but you have the opportunity and the leverage to walk away if a compromise cannot be reached. Negotiation is a process by which we come to an agreement by requiring something from the other person. This engagement is usually a conversation designed to reach an agreement where both parties are equally considered. Negotiation happens in different places, from an employer negotiating on a new working contract, a parent negotiating on where and when the family's gathering will take place, to everyday small decisions that require a simple give and take. As individuals, we need to cultivate negotiation skills which can benefit us not only in our personal relationships, but also in our professional lives. Effective negotiation skills can lead to successful outcomes, mutual understanding, and strengthened relationships. By developing and practicing these skills, we can become more confident and proficient in managing conflicts and reaching agreements that satisfy the needs of all parties involved. Remember, negotiation is not about winning or losing, but rather about finding common ground and reaching a mutually beneficial solution. So, let us embrace the art of negotiation and empower ourselves to navigate through conflicts with grace and respect. Chapter 6: Communication in Different Relationships. Our greatest interpersonal fear comes from the thought that we can give this rupture life, transform indoor bliss into outer blight, silently witness our darkest desires in another or among the many. Desperate to protect ourselves from this fear, we seek to detect those in whom we could become disappointed. This is the purpose of gossip. Imagine what a simple thing it is to want. Of course, the need for associating does not and cannot exclude more earthy desires. Our need for sex must be considered inevitable in the maintenance of the greatest intimacy. It shapes the outcome. Considered as a component of a complex relationship, the act can be a potent force of propagation and expressing our commitments, reaffirming our values, nurturing our sense of self-worth, an offering of affection, and an overt demonstration of trust. While significant, sex, and even sexuality are not unduly thunderous or unheard of matters. The two are the means by which we can assuredly refix our boundaries. Intimate relationships require a especially delicate balance. We need to maintain a distinct sense of self, yet allow ourselves to be influenced by our partner. We need to maintain enough dependence only on ourselves. If one can't, or doesn't, sustain one's end of the relationship, the balance is undermined and safety in the union becomes threatened. There must be confidence. Regrettably, it is often the case that when something is asked to be revealed, it is because there is a pervasive malaise, the feeling of citing solidarity or faltering faith in the other's commitment and caringness. When we ask for reassurance that our relationship is solid and consequently our place in life is safe, the fundamental reason for requesting a partner to reveal or demonstrate trustworthiness and honesty, we run the substantial risk of portraying that we are not confident and distrustful ourselves. Needs whisper while strength asserts. This does not mean that any relationship can be nurtured into a perfect one. This only means that you have a good possibility of conversing about these or any issue you want to. In case you somehow encounter a topic that becomes difficult to be discussed, you would be able to steer it externally from yourself, to a third party, or turn it off. With this knowledge, you would get that sense of fearlessness that a large number of people have in perfect relationships. You do not have to debate or analyze things within yourself or take drastic actions like seeking primary guidance opinions from third parties or giving things up. The common notion about romantic relationships is that they need easier conversations compared to others. Typically, there is less potential for conflict as compared to dealing with an employee or child. However, this is somewhat misleading. Even these seemingly simple conversations can deeply involve the same human emotions and should ideally be given a similar focus. Moreover, while conducting research, we observed that painful, undesirable patterns frequently emerge in romantic relationships because less attention is devoted to their upkeep. Some of the more common issues noticed were conflict around minor points, difficulty bringing up or acknowledging specific issues, spending consistently less time together, lack of any shared activities and mutual interests, leading to extramarital affairs, sexual attraction to others, curbing of creative and individual growth, and differences of perspective. Whether these are personal choices, career objectives, or monetary commitments. Other probable behavior issues were non- or under priority to discussions, dreams, visualizations, and shared aspirations. Loved ones are where we tend to reveal ourselves and learn to dance emotionally. They are where the shape of our perception in ourselves begins, the understanding of ourselves as competent and loved. They are where trust and understanding begin, where we learn to hear and where we are heard. This is no small thing, given that family relationships can protect us from the worst of the human experience and enhance the best. Unfortunately, family relationships, due to their closeness, are also where communication glitches can become magnified, and they can be painful. Given the intense and enduring nature of family relationships, neither party may want to be the first to proactively turn things around. You may feel you shouldn't have to be. You may be right, but effective communication may be necessary if you want things to improve. It may be a necessary first step in the dance of reconciliation, and it may also have profound benefits. It begins with a simple act, the choice to listen. Connecting well with family can be crucial for our well-being. Strong, supportive families have been shown to buffer against the adverse effects of stress, and family relationships have been linked to satisfaction and various forms of support. The strength of family relationships is not just instrumental, but can be more intrinsic and emotional and related to the ways in which we grow and develop as human beings. Family can help us connect back to our roots and sense of belonging. In many ways, our family represents our first community as human beings, tightly knit and often enduring. When families communicate well, they benefit from a sense of trust, respect, and understanding that can foster harmony and close relationships. These are also the links that can sometimes be strained, if only because of the very nature of families who are constantly in one another's lives with all the drama and passion that entails. Emotional intimacy and strong personal ties can buttress and sustain a family when good communication is the order of the day. Whether you're at school or work, maintaining friendships often involves networking or establishing professional relationships that can provide information, experience, and social contacts, as well as work-related support and advice. Having a broad social network can be advantageous for a number of reasons. After all, friends, family, colleagues, and other associates can provide information, encouragement, and long-term resources, as well as emotional support. With this support in mind, it's important to build, respect, and maintain positive relationships with a wide variety of people through effective communication. By encouraging this rapport and support, you'll be well positioned to thrive in college, in your career, and in your life overall. Most of us enjoy connecting with friends and loved ones, but sometimes communication can be a little awkward. We wonder if we're making a good impression, and we mystery over the impact our words and actions have on others. In short, we're anxious about whether we're communicating effectively. The good news is that strong relationships can be particularly rewarding, providing comfort, warmth, and a great sense of belonging. Furthermore, the foundation for good relationships is effective communication, a skill that can be honed and refined. Chapter 7. Communication in the workplace. The worst scenario occurs when organizations cripple their current communication channels by confining them to email messages, one-way communication, or greatly limiting the user's capability to innovate, criticize constructively, or even provide feedback unless prompted to do so. Based on these observable situations, significant opportunities lie in the untouchable portion of our organizational iceberg, lacking the underlying potential to make organizations go as they could. This review examines the relationship between individuals and organizations with evidence suggesting that allowing employees' personal discussions is an effective way of retaining personnel through debates that generate creative ideas that feed the growth of the organization, while also allowing for testing and professional development of the employee. These are the types of conversations that maximize productivity, generating efficiency, proficient encouragement, and work engagement for strategic decision-making, thus providing better results for the firm. As hard as it is to believe, workplace communication often finds itself in one of three plights: neglected, trapped, or restricted. This is the reality for many professionals who struggle to express the needs, thoughts, ideas, or suggestions that could turn their organizations into powerhouses. At the very least, the problem lies in the fact that the traditional channels of communication perpetuate a centralization of the organization's decision-making process, marking the typical top-down approach to many organizational issues. This stratification of the organizational hierarchy leads to a mandated monologue rather than a meaningful dialogue. This bizarre twist of communication norms that devalues the employee often leaves organizations scrambling to decipher the upside of earning and retaining employee buy-in interests or even maintaining their loyalty. When the channel of communication is opened, the team will receive the information needed with less effort, thus boosting efficiency and productivity. They report that global communication plays an important role in increasing return on investment, ROI, of a given organization, reducing bureaucracy, internal hierarchical boundaries and regulations, increasing the speed of business activities, and boosting production output. An open channel of communication accelerates global partnerships with potential suppliers and consumers by sharing the most efficient business practices across the globe. Effective global communication fosters the enterprise lean model and supports the production output to meet the demand. When communication flow is open, the international stakeholders are frequently monitored remotely and are managed in an efficient way. Swift decision-making makes it possible to quickly respond to global market opportunities and fast changes that of other internal or external business environment factors. Team communication is important within an organization, but it is crucial in multicultural and international environments and teams. A team can be considered as a partnership with those involved having complementary skills and working together for a common achievement. A team can easily collapse if there's poor communication between its members simply because the tasks will not be effectively accomplished. In an effective team communication, individuals will satisfactorily share their ideas, opinions, and the feedback will be taken seriously and acted upon. Making and implementation of decisions will be done fast, hence benefiting the business. It is important to carefully select members who will be able to also share their experiences from other cultures or countries. Software such as project management tools with chat and collaboration features or online meeting software should be made available to team members so that global communication can be fostered. Be constructive. With any constructive criticism, make sure it is well thought out with a growth-oriented approach. Constructive criticism involves giving a valid reason or statement that shows insight. We call it constructive because it has the goal to make things better. It provides some kind of remedy, guidance, or potential achievement. When you encounter a negative situation in front of your superiors, make sure you present possible solutions. As the adage goes, you've got a problem, but let's talk about a solution. In short, don't be a part of a complaint culture, but bring a growth-oriented approach in your critique. Prepare well and stick to the point. When conveying your thoughts to your superiors, it is crucial to keep your message clear, concise, and to the point. Be concise and brief in your speaking because people with authority are usually very busy. That's why you should make it as easy as possible for them to understand what you want to say. Respect their time and prepare your message well. Try not to wander away from the main point because you can always give more details if a person is interested. The way we communicate affects our relationship with others. For employees, open communication builds trust and therefore they tend to perform better, knowing that their thoughts and ideas matter to their greater organization and more specifically to their manager. Building a strong and professional relationship with your superior not only goes a long way, but it is a necessary step if you hope to move up in an organizational hierarchy. Instead of shyly keeping quiet or shyly expressing your thoughts, try these approaches when talking to your superiors. Having said that, how do you manage conflict in the workplace? People have the right to conflict, and much of that stems from misunderstandings. People owe it to themselves to set patterns and open up hearts and ears to improve understanding. Immediacy is crucial, so when you have a problem in your workplace, talk to that person directly and immediately in a face-to-face conversation so they can see the emotional tone in your voice. Do not make settings by email. Keep your team members informed, but also be discreet. Speak about the person who concerns you, not what they have said or done. Whenever you communicate with them, Listen to your professional instinct and emotions, often on the most insightful nonverbal hints. Even during this difficult exchange, you have to be sure to be straightforward and professional. Always aim to be polite and supportive. If the argument becomes out of control and becomes excessively heated or confrontational, have the issue reviewed with the team leader or supervisor and take the discussion offline. Always multitask, and when the conversation ends, agree to take action together to resolve the issue. Now more than ever, the public is seeing the divorce of public and private lives. People are overwhelmed with the standards that are expected when dealing with the public, and they want relatability and authenticity. The fact is that people are messy. They are imperfect human beings who are trying to make a climb. It is important to understand and respect the fact that everyone has their own, and often mysterious, intentions. Chapter 8. Communication and Technology. Being able to communicate with others is one of the main reasons that our species has developed beyond being hunters or animals in the forest. Going back to the days when there were only a small percentage of humans that could read and write, imagine the emotions that were displayed and received whenever people did connect. With the various forms of technology and our busy lives, it is becoming more and more common to see families jam as much as they can into the day without having time for meaningful conversations that actually make them feel connected. While we live in a world that is increasingly dominated by technology, there is no way to fully replace face-to-face meetings, warm, loving hugs, and thoughtful personal interaction. We have become a society obsessed with iPhones, texting, and reading messages on all sorts of technological devices versus looking at the person that is directly in front of us. It is not uncommon to see people out for dinner with friends, sitting across from each other while checking email or texting others. No one is listening to the stories being shared or enjoying the ambience of the restaurant. What is the point of going out with friends if everyone is absorbed in their own little world of technology? Have we become too connected or dependent on the digital world that we have forgotten the most basic of human needs, and that is the connection to other human beings? The primary purpose of technology in the communication process is to facilitate efficient and effective transfer of information, even over long distances and multiple time zones. Technology is a fantastic tool for education and information sharing. However, technology should not be used as the sole method of communication, especially when it comes to relationships. Meaningful relationships are built by viewing the nonverbal cues between the two parties, understanding that so many times the information is on the unspoken level, and connecting with the individual or individuals. Creating a new thread with a new topic that takes an email conversation onto another direction creates clutter and wastes users' time, adding unnecessary items into their inboxes. It is not appropriate to post requests for colleagues to stop, chat, or meet in person for work matters via or other tools. It disrupts the recipient's flow of work and should be reserved for urgent issues. Video and audio calls are not often scheduled like face-to-face meetings. They happen at less predictable times, which, again, disrupts the colleague's workflow. When conducting meetings on VoIP tools, use of video communication is encouraged rather than audio only. This allows for better connection between participants. However, keep the camera off unless specifically asked to use video or the meeting agenda includes that technology being necessitated. As with all business communication, it is important to be professional. However, with so many of us spending a lot of time online for work right now, some people are getting a little too comfortable with chatting online. Remember, these tools are used for work and your first priority is to be professional. It is important to not overthink your messages or emails, but don't be too casual. Humor in writing doesn't always flow as naturally as it does when you speak. Not all sense of humor comes across via email, and there just may be some people who don't find your jokes all that funny. You never know if what you think is funny is actually offensive to someone else. It's okay to bring levity to your communications, but try to know your audience. Once you hit the send button, it is a digital done stamp. Once your message is out there, it can be hard, impossible even, to retrieve. You may know how it feels to try and unsay something you regret having said in person. It's even more difficult to do that with digital correspondence. While it's hard to disconnect from our handheld devices entirely, there are strategies to avoid letting these gadgets take a toll on our lives. In this week's article, I share the types of digital distractions and strategies to maintain control. First, understand that there are two types of distractions: external and internal. External distractions are triggers for devices that are physically present. They could include the chime from a new message, audio cue, or seeing a flashing light, visual cue. These distractions prompt you to stop the current task and investigate. Internal distractions, on the other hand, are created by the proximity of gadgets. You stop your task and check just because you know your smartphone is nearby or even within your arm's reach. To avoid external distractions, it is necessary to mute all unnecessary audio sounds emitting from your devices. However, this will only minimize the urgency of your response rather than eliminating it. The key to overcoming external distractions lies in the regulation of visual cues. Research suggests one's productivity diminishes even when someone else nearby receives a text message. Simply seeing somebody use a digital device can significantly reduce one's ability to stay focused. It's difficult to imagine a world without handheld devices these days. After all, our handheld devices have become an indispensable part of our daily lives. However, the convenience comes with a catch. Distractions are aplenty. In my recent parenting seminar for parents of teenagers, one dad, Mike, shared that his adolescent son can stay up all night talking on the phone, or more likely, texting, without feeling sleepy at all. In fact, he can even concentrate better when he's texting. I really don't get it. He ended with a bewildered look on his face. I wasn't much help, telling him that research shows social media can be similar to pleasurable substances like drugs, and that experiments have even suggested phubbing, phone snubbing, can hinder human relationships. Nonetheless, Mike said apologetically that smartphones are indispensable to his son, and he had no intention of taking it away. Mike then asked how he could control this. When we reside heavily in digital communication, we frequently use informal methods of communication, like social media, to connect superficially with friends, coworkers, and loved ones. We might be hypothesizing what is going on in our friend's life or experiencing a period of time when we haven't engaged in formal, phone or face-to-face discussions with someone we value. This period can progressively lead us to feel that we are not as close to the people we cherish, even mean that those we admire no longer value us as much. This cycle can inadvertently develop habitual activities that lead us to overlook the more traditional methods of dialogue. Our community becomes reliant on not-so-authentic communication to feel connected momentarily, ultimately overwhelming us from feeling connected meaningfully. This could even lead us to feel isolated from relationships because we rely deeply on digital communication, especially considering that it is designed to help us feel connected. Although contemporary ways of communicating are essential, let's not bypass the true value of our relationships and the conventional methods that can truly make us feel connected physically. Meeting a friend, acquaintance, or peer in person can be an exhilarating experience. It can re-energize us, reignite our creativity and enthusiasm, motivate us, and remind us that we are not alone in the world, but in the world that we live in now, a digital world. People often struggle to keep their relationships authentic and meaningful. We all know how easy it is to get into the natural state of communication with someone these days, texting, tagging, or direct messaging each other on Instagram. These informal methods of communication fulfill the notion of feeling connected, but often leave our social relations lacking encompassing connectedness and filled with authentic, meaningful interactions. Conclusion: one could choose the simple tools offered throughout this book to optimize the use of these tools, or use alternative tools available elsewhere that lead them to the same destination with one's life partner. If they procrastinate this journey or never embark on the journey at all, their relationship will not deepen as much or as swiftly as the relationships of those who endeavor this journey. Choose a person whom you love and cherish the most in your life, and deepen the connection you share with the strategies in this book. Once you realize success together and share the joy with those you engage, others too will be inspired to walk this well-trodden path. This book equips couples to enhance their relationships through effective communication. Co-creating a healthy, heart-connected relationship takes time and effort. To realize one's full potential as an individual and innovative, co-creative team member, it is worthwhile to develop and use communication skills, enhance, and deepen loving connections. In addition to learning some theory, this book should be seen as a companion to support couples in the journey of deepening relationships. The couple share sections at the end of each chapter support couples in deepening their connections by inviting them to process the new wisdom together. If you found this content enriching and valuable, we would be deeply grateful if you could express your appreciation through liking and subscribing. Your support is incredibly meaningful and enables us to continue creating content that resonates with you. For those who think this is a great gift for yourself or for your loved ones, you can find the link in the description.